Google DeepMind thinks EVE Online is the hardest challenge in gaming for artificial intelligence, and they're actually going to do something about it. They're now a minority owner in EVE Online's developer, who have incidentally renamed to Fenris Creations. More on that in just a moment. Now, Google's involvement is a small part of a larger, separate $120 million deal that is allowing the studio to once again go independent. Lots of news then, and I'll go into detail on each of these in just a bit. But first, the most interesting part is what Google wants to do with AI. You see, this isn't about integrating AI into EVE Online, at least not yet, not in the way you might be fearing. It's about Google wanting a gaming system that is the ultimate challenge for AI. I'm sure many of you will remember how Google trained AlphaGo to beat Go and then become a super player. This is a lot like that, but it's for an even more complex game. When you think about it, EVE really is the obvious choice for something like this, because most of the games that AI has been tested on are relatively self-contained. Go, for example, has clear rules and a fixed board. StarCraft has build orders and unit counters. But EVE Online is a single persistent universe, meaning it's always online and active. It has over 200,000 players sharing the same world, and there's a fully player-driven economy where market crashes happen because, well, yes, there's real supply and demand. There are also political alliances that take months to build and can collapse overnight through espionage. Players run intelligence networks, wage economic warfare, and pull off heists that make international news in gaming media. And all of this is happening simultaneously across thousands of star systems with no recess. Now, DeepMind's Adrian Bolton said EVE requires skills that AI has not yet fully mastered. These are long-term planning, continual learning, and memory across extended timeframes. And on top of that, the CEO of Fenris Creations, Hilmar Pedersen, put it in a very interesting way when he joked that EVE Online is the final boss for AI in games. So how is this actually going to work? Well, from what we know, DeepMind will be running offline copies of EVE on local servers, completely separated from the live game. They've been very clear about that. That means the live Tranquility servers that the players actually play on are not going to be directly involved with this. What DeepMind gets is something that they can't build from scratch. It's going to be a game, a system with 23 years of emergent complexity that's built right into it. And that means they can simulate an economic crisis, an alliance war, a resource shortage, and then run agents directly through that, reset the whole thing, and then do it all over again. So they're going to be studying how artificial intelligence handles a world that behaves a lot like our own in many different ways. In other words, a system that's messy, political, and very unpredictable, and all driven by thousands of individual decisions all happening at once. And of course, the key concern here, I do think, for a lot of gamers is going to be what does this mean for the future of gaming? Are developers thinking about ways of embedding AI into games? Well, I think unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at that, that is a given, and that's going to be the direction that the industry ultimately goes in. But it will depend a lot on how players deal with that. There may be a lot of resistance to it. But that said, from a purely AI research point of view, regardless of what any of us may or may not think about AI in gaming, there's a real research opportunity here for DeepMind. As we've seen with previous game-based projects, whether that's AlphaGo or AlphaStar, DeepMind has advanced the understanding of how artificial intelligence actually handles game-level decisions, strategy and things like that. And those weren't about monetizing players or replacing anyone, they were pure research, pure and simple. And yes, Google of course have made a lot of money off the back of that. But ultimately, EVE Online represents a step beyond everything we've seen so far. It introduces a human element at a scale that no other game actually manages or matches. It means that AI will be dealing with gaming systems that are embedded with deception, trust, long-term relationship building, economic manipulation, and many other things besides. And these are all things that the current AI does really struggle with. And EVE, of course, is absolutely full of them. And yes, this does come with the usual caveats and uncertainties about the dangers of AI, both in terms of commercialization, but also in terms of what it means for society. Because if you're training AI on deception, a game that's kind of based on deception and growing and developing at the expense of other players, then, well, what are you teaching the AI? Because these are all questions that are going to have to be considered. And ultimately, I suspect the result of all of this research is not just going to be about gaming. The AI is obviously going to be used in other systems outside of the gaming industry. But it also begs the question of exactly what is going to feed back into the game. Does it mean smarter NPC factions? Does it mean more dynamic universe events? The sort of things that, could be something we're going to have to wait and see on really, but they could bring the game to be far more alive than it currently is. So EVE Online's next FanFest is starting next week, and Adrian Bolton from DeepMind's founding team is taking the stage with Hilmar, so we should learn a lot more then, at least hopefully. Right now then, that's the AI side of everything that's been going on with EVE Online, but as I said right at the start of the video, there's another piece of news here that's pretty much just as significant for EVE Online players. So CCP Games, the studio behind EVE Online for the past 23 years, no longer exist, at least not by that same name. The studio has now split from its parent company Pearl Abyss and rebranded as Fenris Creations. Pearl Abyss originally bought CCP back in 2018 for around about $425 million. Now this has been brought back by the studio for $120 million, so on paper that is going to be a significant loss for Pearl Abyss. At least that's my understanding of it. If I'm wrong on that, then do please correct me. But either way, both companies here describe this as a mutual decision after reviewing their long-term strategies, and they kind of come to the conclusion that they were heading in totally different directions. Fenris Creations then is now independently owned by its senior management and its long-term investors, and Google is holding a minority stake through the DeepMind deal. Interestingly, the name Fenris does have a bit of a history to it. Fenris first appeared on the box of the studio's very first game in 1997, but it also comes with some Norse mythology, and the fact that CCP Games, now Fenris, is an Icelandic studio, that could be very irrelevant. In mythology, Fenris was essentially a wolf that broke its chains, and that feels kind of appropriate given the circumstances of Fenris breaking away from Pearl Abyss. Could be a relevant metaphor there, I guess. Now, the important thing for players is that nothing about the game is going to be changing operationally. We've got the same teams, the same leadership, the same studios in Iceland, London, Shanghai and elsewhere. Apparently there's going to be no layoffs, no restructuring, and Hilmar, who was the CEO, is still the CEO, is remaining there, and the development roadmap for EVE Online is going to continue as is. There's also, of course, EVE Vanguard, an extraction shooter that's connected directly to EVE Online, and that's still in development, and EVE Frontier, the survival-based spin-off, is also still in development. Everything else then carries on just as before. It's just under independent ownership with a new name over the company door. Apparently, EVE Online has also had a great year actually, made a lot of money. It closed 2025 with a lot of revenue in November, over $70 million for the year, and one of the strongest quarters in its entire history. We also see that it's between 200 and 300,000 monthly active users of EVE Online, and that's 23 years after launch. There's not many games, not just in the space game genre, but any game, any genre whatsoever, with that type of longevity, let alone with that type of growth and that type of monetization this far into its life cycle. Yeah, quarter of a century. Wow. And I still remember playing it first in beta back in 2023. So, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below. What do you think about EVE Online finally getting an independent studio back? More importantly, perhaps, what do you feel about everything with DeepMind's involvement? And what do you think that might mean for the AI industry, as well as the games industry, and of course, EVE Online itself? I look forward to hearing what you say. Let me know in the comments section below. There is another video on the screen right here if you want to watch that one. Thanks for watching this one. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.